The beautiful love story of Richard and Jessica. In a world where success is often defined by wealth, Richard had everything except the one thing that truly mattered. He had worked tirelessly, using his genius and hard work to build a fortune. Yet, despite all his success, there was one thing that troubled him deeply: his relationship with his mother. She had always refused to live with him in his grand mansion, preferring to stay in the modest apartment she had shared with Richard's late father. Richard respected her wishes, understanding that it was where she cherished the memories of their life together. After his mother passed away, Richard visited her apartment one quiet Sunday. The space felt frozen in time, just as it had been before her passing. It was here, surrounded by memories of his childhood, that Richard found himself drawn to the wheelchair his mother had used in her final years. It was something that held so many memories for him, memories of the times he had ridden through the apartment as a child. In an impulse driven by nostalgia, Richard slowly sat in the wheelchair, rolling down the familiar hallway. But as he did, something unexpected happened. He felt the gentle pressure of someone pushing him forward. When he turned, he was startled to see a young, beautiful woman with a warm smile on her face. She introduced herself as Jessica. Jessica's kindness and innocence were immediately apparent. She insisted Richard stay in the wheelchair, even when he tried to stand up, saying that it wasn't heavy. She casually mentioned that she was his neighbor and offered to help him whenever he needed it. Richard felt a strange connection to her, and over the coming weeks, they grew closer, sharing tea and stories about their lives. Jessica was a simple, hardworking girl. She had 2 part-time jobs and struggled to pay for college and her father's heart surgery. Richard, although not disabled, pretended to be so in order to protect his secret from her. He also lied about his occupation, claiming to work as a cashier in a small food service. But despite the facade, Richard couldn't help but admire Jessica's beauty and kindness. She was everything he had been searching for, a person who saw beyond wealth and status. As their friendship deepened, Richard began to open up in ways he hadn't with anyone before. He talked about his childhood memories, the loneliness of his success, and how disconnected he sometimes felt from the world. Jessica, with her quiet strength, listened to him with patience and understanding. She shared her own struggles, her hopes, and her dreams, reminding Richard that despite the material hardships, there was always hope and love to be found. One day, Richard found himself caught in a whirlwind of emotions. In a moment of panic and fear, he bought a cheap ring, hoping to propose to Jessica. His heart raced at the thought of her rejecting him, but to his surprise, Jessica accepted without hesitation. She loved him for who he was, not for any facade he had put up. It was a moment of profound realization for Richard, but the weight of his secret still hung over him. As time passed, their bond grew stronger, and Jessica eventually suggested that Richard meet her parents. Richard, nervous yet hopeful, agreed. When he met them, he was astonished by their warmth and kindness. Her father, knowing about Richard's love for his daughter, welcomed him with open arms. Her mother, who had been skeptical of men in the past, saw the love and devotion Richard had for Jessica and was equally pleased. However, Richard still hadn't revealed his true identity. He was afraid that Jessica would leave him once she learned who he really was. Yet, Jessica was already in love with him for the man he was, not the man he pretended to be. She loved him for his vulnerability, for his honesty in moments of doubt, and for the way he cared for her with such pure affection. One day, Richard invited Jessica to his mansion, a place she had never set foot in before. He nervously asked her what she would do if he lost his job, and she answered with unwavering devotion that she would take care of him for the rest of her life. When Richard asked her what would happen if he were richer than she thought, Jessica smiled and replied, "I don't care about your wealth, Richard, as long as you're rich in love." With those words, Richard knew that he could no longer keep his secrets from her. He knelt down and proposed once more, this time with a beautiful $1 million ring. Jessica was stunned by the gesture, but even more so when Richard revealed the truth about his identity. He was a multi-billionaire, and their first meeting had been an accident born of lies. Jessica sat there, her hands trembling as she took in the revelation. But instead of anger or disappointment, her eyes softened. With tears welling up, she smiled and said, "I love your heart, Richard. I don't care about your wealth. I care about you." Richard, overwhelmed with emotion, shared his heartfelt apology for the lies he had told. He confessed how afraid he had been that she wouldn't love him if she knew the truth. He promised that he would always love her for who she was, and that her love was all he ever truly needed. To show his love, he offered to pay for her father's heart surgery, ensuring the best medical care for him. They decided to marry, and as the days passed, the mansion, which had always been a symbol of wealth, transformed into a home full of love and laughter. Jessica's parents moved in with them, and together they built a life full of love, compassion, and mutual respect. The mansion, which had once felt so cold and empty, now felt warm and alive with the sounds of family, joy, and shared memories. Richard began to understand that true wealth didn't come from money. It came from the heart. He realized that all the luxury and material possessions in the world couldn't replace the joy of knowing he was truly loved for who he was, not what he had. The house, which had been a place of loneliness and isolation, now felt like a home, filled with warmth and meaning. He never again questioned what really mattered in life. In the end, Richard's wealth couldn't compare to the love he had found with Jessica. Their love proved that even in a world filled with material possessions, true love is priceless. It was a love built on honesty, kindness, and mutual respect. Together, they showed that love sees beyond the surface and cherishes the person within, no matter their circumstances or background. They built a life based on the simple yet profound understanding that love is the only thing that truly endures. Moral of the story: true love isn't measured by wealth, appearance, or status. It's about kindness, honesty, and a deep connection between two hearts. Love sees beyond the surface and cherishes the person within, no matter their circumstances.